Because it happens only every 10 years, people are just not paying attention and aren't going to expect it.
You count as a person, and so we need you to stand up. We need you to hold your hand up and say, yes, I live here.
The 2020 census is almost here. With over $1 trillion in federal funding on the line, getting an accurate count is critical to supporting the needs of South Florida for the next decade. We'll take a look at what's on the line and why mistrust and apathy may put your community at risk of missing out on some much-needed dollars. That and more. Stay with us as we dive into your South Florida. Hello and welcome. I'm Pam Gigante. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to your South Florida. Every month, we tackle one big issue impacting our community with a deep dive into what's at stake. This month, it is the upcoming U.S. Census. Simply put, the census is the count of all the people living in the United States. It happens every 10 years and is required by the U.S. Constitution. So why should you care, and why should you participate? Well, that count of people and where they live is used to determine the number of seats that each state has in Congress. And it helps to guide how $1.5 trillion in federal funding is spent in communities across the country every year. So if you think about it as a pie, Florida's slice works out to nearly $87 billion each year. That's why stakeholders like local governments, libraries, and nonprofit agencies across South Florida are banding together to get a more accurate count in 2020. In Miami-Dade, it is the Miami Foundation that is leading the county's big census push called Miami-Dade Counts. I sat down with the foundation's Lindsey Linzer to find out if South Florida is ready.
Because it happens only every 10 years, people are just not paying attention and aren't going to expect it.
Lindsey Linzer is Senior Director of Programs for the Miami Foundation. The nonprofit is leading a county-wide effort to better inform Miami-Dade residents about the 2020 census.
Miami-Dade County within Florida is one of the hardest to count communities for. We have data going back from 2000 and 2010 that shows us which specific cities within Miami-Dade County tend to have a lower response rate. So we already know the high-risk communities. People forget to count the children, the babies in their homes, the cousins sleeping on the couch. We have a high population that English is not a first language. We have a high number of immigrants. Even if you are not a U.S. citizen, you need to be counted in the census. Every single living, breathing person needs to be counted. And so we're trying to do everything we can to make sure that message is clear, to ensure that the entire population gets counted.
According to the U.S. Census Bureau, Miami-Dade, Palm Beach, and Broward were among the top undercounted counties in Florida during the last census 10 years ago. That meant the state missed an estimated 1.4 million people, costing Florida roughly $20 billion in lost federal funding.
We need that government funding to support critical programs for youth, like SNAP benefits, like early childhood education. We need money for Medicaid. Census funding is so important to everything that we do every day. That data is used by nonprofits and foundations to make decisions about the services that they're going to offer. It's used by government to figure out where they're going to build roads, because they want to build roads near where the people are. So if we lose out on counting everybody and we lose out on that money, it's another 10 years before we're going to be able to have a chance at actually getting that money back that we need.
Yeah, and worth noting as well that it also determines our congressional representation.
In the 2020 census, it is estimated that Florida could potentially get 2 more congressional seats. And so that's huge. So it's not only the dollars into our community, it's representation for our state in Congress. And so we really, as a state, want to get as complete a count as possible.
As part of Miami-Dade County's census outreach campaign, the Miami Foundation and its partners are helping to educate community-based organizations to reach those historically undercounted populations. They've awarded $475,000 to 29 local nonprofits, such as Centro Campesino, that works with South Dade's Farmworker community, to better ensure a more accurate count this time around.
Agricultural workers are important to South Florida's economy, but also for the whole state. One of the top 3 key economic drivers in the state of Florida is agricultural work. For Miami-Dade County, it's one of the top 5.
John Martínez is Centro Campesino's executive director. For nearly 50 years, this community development corporation has helped provide affordable housing to the area's agricultural workers.
In our history, Centro Campesino has built over 500 single-family homes and sold them in the affordable market. We also manage multifamily properties of apartments for senior citizens and working families. We have over 2,500 individuals that participate in our HUD-certified homeownership course.
And when it comes to educating this community about the census, John says their biggest hurdle is fear.
There is also fear in our community of government structures and government individuals. With the rhetoric that has grown the last few years, particularly towards immigrants, that immigrants are causing all the economic and social ills in our community, people fear government structures and government individuals. We strongly believe that that's going to be an impediment to having a clear and accurate count.
And let's talk about that fear factor. People who are maybe illegal or people who are not citizens, they still need to be counted, correct? And that question won't be on the census.
There will not be a citizenship on the census. But there is a lot of fear about somebody knocking on their door and asking their status, and fear about what they put on the form, who that information will be available to. The Census Bureau keeps the information secure for 72 years. Nobody, no government agency, not the president, not anybody has access to that information. So we're doing the best we can to really educate both the organizations we work with in the community and the general population that their information that they fill out on the census form is secure.
It's an issue and a challenge that we cannot deal with ourselves. We are part of a collaborative, which is the Florida Farmworker Census Collaborative. We have a partnership with Culture One World, and they created sensitive materials in Spanish for immigrants and other Latinos. Part of that partnership is to share and disseminate those materials on the local television stations, radio, and print media. Today, we have affordable housing units, and they're all full. For every unit that we have close to 200 people on a waiting list. There are literally thousands of people waiting for an opportunity for affordable housing in Miami-Dade County. Without an accurate census count, those long lines are just going to get longer. With an accurate census count, there could be resources available to support affordable housing and other vital services. So an accurate census count or an inaccurate census count affects all of us.
Our focus is the northwestern part of the county, so underrepresented, under-resourced area, a disadvantaged area, absolutely an area that's hard to count.
Nikisha Williams is Chief Operating Officer of another Miami Foundation grantee, the Opa Locka Community Development Corporation. For the past 40 years, this nonprofit has helped provide resources such as affordable housing and financial empowerment to community members most in need.
We recognize that there's high poverty, it's an under-resourced community, so our goal is to pump as many resources as we can and be a support system for our community so that together we can all rise up. None of us are receiving big dollars. And so the fact that there's an organization like Miami Foundation that really can come along and help develop template resources and pull together collectively organizations that really want to have an impact, it's important because it means that we all don't have to start from scratch, that we all can benefit from the collective of all organizations. And so we get to take what they've developed and then customize it for our own community. One of the things that we find is that people don't trust government. People don't trust that the resources are being sent to their communities. They don't trust that that they're going to get anything out of this. So as a result, they say, why do I need to take this? And so for us, we're trying to help overcome that, and we're trying to help them understand there's an opportunity for us to get more resources as a whole, and you count as a person, and so we need you to stand up. We need you to hold your hand up and say, yes, I live here, because that then informs the number of resources that we receive as a community.
This year's census will be available mostly online. That may be a challenge, however, for some low-income communities such as Opa Locka, where access to the internet and computers may be difficult for some residents.
We're lucky enough to have tons of laptop computers here in our own our own campus. And so we're going to loan those laptop computers out to other organizations so that they can reach their community directly at community events or any other types of trainings. We're going to go directly into affordable housing units here in the community. So oftentimes these are some of the hardest to count. So one of the things that we're going to do is the day that rent is due, we're going to set up shop and we're going to be there with our computers, knowing that lots of these folks don't have computers in their homes. So we're going to be there saying, hey, do you know about the census? Hey, go upstairs and get that code that they already sent you and let's do this. I can answer all of the questions that you have. There's also some senior affordable housing units. Again, they're not as comfortable on the computer, so we're going to make sure that we're there to help walk them through this process and hold their hands. We're reaching out to local universities and colleges to go on campus and do the exact same thing. This is the first time that many folks on college campuses are taking the census. We want to be there to help answer questions, help guide them through the process if they need answers.
So with South Florida's rapid growth, even from 2010 to now, it's almost as if this census is the most important count that it's ever had.
It is so critically important. Those dollars are so needed. That representation is needed. It also determines redistricting. So even within your little community, you need to advocate that your neighbors participate in the census so that you can make sure that you get the representation locally that you need.
Well, census outreach efforts are also underway in both Broward and Palm Beach counties, where officials are dealing with some unique challenges of their own as they strive for an accurate count there.
We need to make sure that every single person is counted in Broward County, well, for all over the state for that matter.
Former state senator and current Broward County Commissioner Nan Rich chairs the county's Complete Count Committee for the 2020 census.
We had a pretty good turnout last time, but we had $210 million that was left on the table, and we're trying to lower that because every program that people use, especially some of the most vulnerable populations, it is counted based on, you receive your money based on the census. We need to get our fair share, particularly because of the diversity of our community, immigrants, seniors, 0 to 5 population. We're vulnerable in all of those areas if we don't get those people counted.
So the CSC is committed to helping the county get an accurate count.
Cindy Arenberg Seltzer is president and CEO of the Children's Services Council of Broward County. Since 2000, the CSC has worked with community partners to help fund programs and provide resources for children and families throughout the county.
The Children's Services Council does not receive any federal funding directly, not based on apportionment that would come out of the census. But we use it in planning. So it's important on many levels. The funding that comes in through the census that funds hunger programs such as free and reduced lunch, the amount that might come in for subsidized childcare, all of those things may lessen the amount of local dollars that have to go in to fund those services. Conversely, if we discover some big pocket of unmet need, which can come out through the census, then we know that locally we need to try and fill that. We are partnering with so many organizations throughout this community, whether it be the Early Learning Coalition in order to get outreach into the child care centers where parents are coming every day. We're also partnering with Broward County libraries that are putting information in the libraries and bookmarks and doing a lot of outreach. And then we are working with the nonprofits to find people from the community who can be trained to be census takers so that someone familiar can come to the door and ask you these questions. You just may not even think of the importance of telling a census taker, or when you're filling out the form, oh, that baby I just had last week, I need to tell them. Or, you know, this under 1-year-old does have an impact. They're still a citizen, and keep in mind, this count is going to last for 10 years. So it guides a lot for a while. And we have to build schools, we have to accommodate in so many ways from a planning perspective. So it's very important that all the children be counted.
That's the message we're trying to get across to to all of the populations. That's why it's so important because people ask, well, why is it so important for me to do this? What has it got to do with me? And it has everything to do. Our public schools, our transportation, roads, everything you can think of is tied in.
Similar census outreach work is also underway in Palm Beach County. It's an effort led by County Administrator Verdenia Baker.
We currently have about 1.5 million people in Palm Beach County, and each of those individuals will generate roughly about $1,600. And so for an annual year, we would generate roughly about $2.4 billion that would be coming into the county. And over a 10-year period, that's $24 billion that could come into our community and provide for assistance in our educational needs, housing needs, our infrastructure needs, and a myriad of other issues. I am personally dragging a number of the organizations I belong into the process so that they understand as well how important it is to make sure everybody is counted, because federal allocations are tied to population and the various demographics, which we're all a little unique in our community. South Florida is more aligned, but we've got areas that their demographics are totally different than ours, their needs are a little different than ours, but it is crucial that you capture that data. We actually have developed a map that will show the areas that were estimated to be undercounted. We will be focusing on those particular areas. We have created a complete count committee, which was created last year, to start focusing on those particular areas, along with our other community partners. So we're going to make a concerted effort to make sure that all people are counted, but especially in those undercounted areas.
We have the very affluent and we have the very poor in Palm Beach County. So each of them has a different focus when tackling the census.
Ed Chase is Director of Intergovernmental Affairs and Community Engagement for Palm Beach County. He says the county's diverse communities are posing unique challenges for census outreach.
In an affluent community, they are looking at battling issues of apathy. In a hard-to-count community, they are making sure to count every living, breathing human being that's within their borders. So depending on the community, their tactics are very widely. Palm Beach County shares similarities with our friends in Broward County and Miami-Dade County, and we're a little different in some aspects. We're similar because we have a very large coastal population, and that coastal population is transient. We have lots of snowbirds. It doesn't matter where they're registered to vote or where their car license plate is from. If they're here on April 1st, they have to be counted here. But we also have a very rural community out in the Glades. And again, those are hard to count areas for different reasons. They are not mainly English speaking sometimes. Poverty is a difficult issue out there. Lots of renters. So again, those are all difficult, hard to count problems for the census. So each municipality, Pahokee, Belglade, South Bay, they have their own complete count committees, and they're using their own families and their own trusted voices in those communities to reach out and encourage people to respond to the census.
We need to ensure them that they count, they matter in our community, and as a result of their accurate count, dollars are allocated to our community to meet the needs of that particular population.
Well, joining me now to talk more about what you can expect from the 2020 census is Marilyn Stephens, Assistant Regional Census Manager for the U.S. Census Bureau. Marilyn, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, so clearly we have seen it is very important for everybody to be counted, right?
Yes.
So that we can get all of these dollars that we need for all of these programs. Let's kind of walk through what the census looks like. What kinds of questions are on the census, and how is it different from 2010, and then how long is it going to take us to complete it?
Well, you know, the census, because we count everyone in the household, so the size of your household will depend on the length of time. There are only 10 questions on the questionnaire. There's a question about your age, and we ask that in two parts. What age are you on April 1st? And we ask for your birth date to ensure that that's accurate. Then we ask about your sex, are you male or are you female? Then we ask about household relationship. How are the people in the household related to the person that's completing the questionnaire?
We have a graphic up right now,
Okay.
and that's an example of what that looks like. So
And
for the first time too, same-sex partners, or either unmarried or unmarried, are
Absolutely.
being counted, and there's a box for that.
And what you'll see for this particular response, there are 16 choices. This is the first time in history there have been that many options for a household relationship, because this way we can take a look at how the family has changed over time. And as you can see, there's just not, we have left nothing out.
Yeah.
For multi-generational households, for people taking care of their parents, for son-in-laws and daughter-in-laws. So that has changed over time.
Were those some of the areas that were missed last time? Because we even heard in one of the pieces, somebody may forget that they just had a baby last week. They may not think that they need to put the baby on there. I mean, so it's critical that every person from April 1st on living in that home is counted, because in the past, it sounds like some of those people have been missed, correct?
Well, one of the things is that the census is a national civic ceremony that is all-inclusive. There is nothing that we do in the nation that is all-inclusive the way the census is. We count everyone breathing on U.S. soil based on our residence criteria.
Yeah.
So one of the things is that often parents are confused. Well, maybe this is just for adults.
Right.
It is not for children. So in past censuses, some of them have left the children off. Then we have grandparents as caregivers who are raising another generation, and some of them are feeling, well, maybe this is just for me and not for my grandchildren. So there has been some confusion, and we have had a lot of work with a lot of outreach with our partners to raise awareness about the importance of everyone being counted.
Yeah, and so talk about the critical part about the people in the house, because we also saw that college students are a part of this process to be counted as well. But if that college student is not living in your home on April 1st and is away at college, you don't count them, correct?
No, and you'll see that on the very first page, in the first frame of the questionnaire. It says, do not count people that are not living here, people that are in college, people that are incarcerated, people that are in nursing homes. College students are counted where they go to school.
If they live on campus, you were saying, right?
If they live on campus, there's a special enumeration that we're working with the colleges and universities now. They're exercising their options there on how we will count their students in on-campus housing. Then off-campus students are counted in the general population. They will receive the notifications that every other household receives.
Right, in their apartment that they're renting or and
absolutely,
so on.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about fraud, because there might be things that people are getting in the mail that look like it has to do with the census, but it could be something else, and folks are confused. You were telling me earlier there are like 4 steps that are going to happen for people to be notified about, okay, now it's time to take the census. Why don't you walk us through that and maybe identify what some of the fraudulent things are people should look at.
And this census, we will have a website at rumors at census.gov that people will be able to go online and really to see. We will never ask for your social security number. We will not have a Q code on that, because people are so accustomed
like a QRL code.
QRL code.
No.
They're so accustomed to seeing those QRL codes.
Okay.
That will not be on it. So there is a postcard out now that is fraudulent.
Okay.
And is not tied to the census. And when people click on that QRL code, they're going to an app that was developed by someone in China. So that's fraudulent. So we are working to ensure that we get the word out.
Okay.
Now,
so what should people look for, and when is that going to start coming in the mail?
Absolutely. Starting on March 12th through March 20th, we're going to send out an invitation letter. Dear American Household, it's that time again. Time for the census. This time is going to say, you may go online, or you may call the toll-free number and complete the census by phone or online.
Okay.
And that's historic.
Yeah.
And then if you have not gone online or called our call center on the toll-free number, then between March 16th and 24th, you will get a reminder. Dear American Household, we know you have multiple priorities and you understand how important this is.
Right.
So please go online or call our toll-free number. And then you will receive a reminder postcard, and just a little nudge.
Right.
Please go online and complete the census or call our toll-free number.
Okay.
Now, if you, out of those 3 communications, if you still have not completed the questionnaire, then the 4th communication that we'll start sending out around April 5th will be the actual paper questionnaire and a reminder
to fill that
letter.
out and
Absolutely.
mail that.
Yeah. So now you have all three options. You have online, by phone, and by mail at your disposal.
Right.
And so then we're going to send out a reminder letter after that at the end of April to say, come on now. It's your choice, online, by phone, or by mail.
Yeah.
And then around May 10th, or maybe the second week of May, we're going to take a look at all the addresses that have yet to respond. And then we will start building our workload to go and knock on the doors.
Okay. So there are people who work for the census who will go out to those homes that have not filled out the census yet.
And conduct the interview in person.
Okay.
But even when we start knocking on doors, you will still be able to go online, call the toll-free number, as well as mail that paper questionnaire. But we really want people to voluntarily to do it rather than have someone to knock on their door.
Yeah. And again, you want people to know that this is something that's extraordinarily important for, as we mentioned, congressional representation, for federal funds for things like transportation, for healthcare, et cetera, correct? It's critical.
Title I. Many of our schools in South Florida depend on those Title I funds for early childhood and early Head Start and Head Start to ensure that we do not have a waiting list so that the numbers will support the need. For people that are eligible for SNAP benefits and WIC benefits, for Medicaid and Medicare.
So many things.
Absolutely. For older Americans programs, for veterans,
and,
bilingual education. There is just so much tied. Roads and highways. Everything is tied to the census.
And this is our shock. We won't get it until 10 years.
Let me tell you, $675 billion annually. And you want your fair share for your community.
Marilyn, thank you so much. We appreciate all the great information. And we're going to have more information about the 2020 census and all of the programs and organizations discussed on today's program on our Facebook page at Your South FL. As always, thank you for joining us. We hope you'll join us again next time. Thanks for watching.